The Forgotten Realms is an awfully big place with even bigger enemies, overwhelmingly huge inconveniences, and colossal amounts of aliens putting parasites in folks' heads. A good thing that this totally regular-sized elf and not a gnome is here to show our enemies what a real giant threat looks like. They won't stand a chance as he throws his way past the unwashed masses, conquers those he deems worthy of conquering, and maybe even cuts a deal with those who can serve in the beginning of his great empire. Of course, to rule the world, first he's got to get rid of this tadpole in his head and save the world. Can it be done? Well, we got one way to find out. But first, the rules. No other party members, though temporary companions such as summons are a-okay. No respecking, no multi-classing, no illithid powers, no karmic dice, no barrelmancy or chestmancy, no saving in the middle of combat, and we're playing with the honor mode rule set, so we'll be keeping it that way. With all that said, let's move on to character creation. Starting us off, we'll be playing as a totally normal elf and definitely not a forest gnome that is known specifically for being small, which of course would also grant gnomish cunning for advantage on all mental saves were we to play one. Our class, as one could guess, is Barbarian, giving us the ability to rage, letting us deal more damage and take less damage, alongside giving advantage on tossing people around. The background of choice is Outlander, since if we were a forest gnome, we would likely be from the forest. Ability scores and skill proficiencies end up looking like this, with an emphasis on our physical stats so we can stay in the action and give them the what for. At last, our hero, or rather villain, is ready to set out on the warpath. All he needs is a name worthy of a conqueror. And so, here begins the conquering crusade of Napoleon Bonabarbe. Napoleon Bonabarbe awakens on a nautiloid, and while it would make a fine start to his fleet, his first goal is just to get out of here alive. So we get heading towards the helm, only to get jumped by this frog-looking lady who has the audacity to call us an abomination. Then some imps show up to inconvenience us even more, and we get to scuffling. Of course, we can't pass up the opportunity to give her a good old kick into the abyss below to get back at her. Hey, kicking is a pretty good strategy, maybe we should do more of that later. Either way, the imps really are no trial for our troublesome terror, especially while raging. Next thing you know, we're at the helm of the ship, and we can hold off on adding this to our fleet for a little bit longer. Instead, we rush over to the other side, connect some tentacles, teleport through space to somewhere a little bit more familiar looking, and get saved by magical means. Proof that we really are chosen to rule this world. Time for our journey to really begin. Of course, after, we get this dandy little hat to keep us warm, not that our hairline couldn't suffice or anything like that. Followed by killing some freaky looking brains lurking about, and finishing off a malevolent mind flayer, giving us enough XP for level 2, which grants danger sense and reckless attack. Danger sense gives us advantage on most dexterity saves so long as we're not blinded or incapacitated. And reckless attack lets us give ourselves advantage on melee attacks in return for giving enemies advantage against us. Then we're off towards the sounds of battle, where we see some goblins getting ready to conquer a druid grove. It would be a perfect force for us to lead, but unfortunately they mistake us for being on the side of the druids. Naturally, this really enrages us, and Napoleon makes good use of his new reckless attack. Our temporary allies do a pretty good job on their end, granting us temporary HP, and instantly cooking one of the goblins alive at one point. While they do continue to get big hits in here and there, one of them does get got pretty quickly. Of course, Napoleon plays his part impeccably, but that goes without saying. As the fight goes on, Zevlor, the tiefling on the high ground, continues to prove his worth, but we get the feeling this Will guy would have been more aptly named Won't. Either way, between Napoleon's whacks, Zevlor's killer aim, and Napoleon's whacks again, this fight gets cleaned up in the blink of an eye. Then we get let inside their grove, where we get denied payment, so naturally we stand tall and assert our dominance over this druidic dunce. Once inside proper, we head over to Aaron and buy the Ring of Flinging, giving us an extra 1d4 damage on all of our thrown attacks, a huge boost that'll stick with us for a while. Afterwards, we get exploring the grove and find the druids don't much like the tieflings, even to the point of trying to kill one of their children. And while it is the right of the large to rule over the small, we take the chance to show them who's boss by bossing around to the druids and saving a tiefling. Then we meet Nettie, who we tell about our tadpole, to which she tells us to unalive ourselves, and when we say we don't much feel like doing that, she takes matters into her own hands. So we show her what happens when a dwarf tries to rise above their station. A moment later, we find a hidden cave in the grove wherein we meet a little thieves guild led by Maul. She's pretty stoked that we saved saved her friend earlier and asks us to steal the druid's idol in exchange for a reward. Given the incident that just happened, we're more than happy to oblige with the help of a darkness arrow and fast traveling to camp before they can even realize what happened. Upon reporting back to Maul, she rewards us with the Ring of Protection, which won't stay with us forever, but for now it gives +1 to AC and our saving throws. Either way, we don't much care for all the people in this place, but it seems like the goblins are working for the Absolute who's leading the Illithids too, so we go looking for them. Instead, we find Raphael, who makes the immediate mistake of saying this.
Looks like a gnome.
Clearly, Napoleon is not short enough to be a gnome, but just to ensure Raphael's perspective is fixed, we promise to put him 6 feet under. It'll be a little bit trickier since he's apparently a rather powerful devil who wants to make a deal with us. Regardless though, we tell him we're gonna kick his butt into a pit if he keeps talking, and we're back to our adventure, where soon after we meet Scratch, a rather loyal hound whose master just died. Everyone knows that a good warlord always has a loyal hound, so we leave him our scent to find us when he's ready. As we continue on into a nearby village, we get ambushed by some more goblins who aren't nearly as intimidated by us as they should be, and so another fight kicks off. This fight is a little bit rough at first since we have to spend our first turn dashing up to the enemies who fire away at us. But once we get in their faces and kill one, then shove the other off of the roof, we're in a way better spot, especially since the folks on the opposite side of the road are stuck dashing to us. Things immediately get horrible again as we get crit hit down to 2 HP through a solid roof. Like, genuinely, how did that hit us? Thankfully, with our healing potions, we're able to keep ourselves topped up just enough so that we don't die and manage to get a bit of revenge on the folks who damaged us so bad. A goblin warrior from elsewhere in the village joins the fight, but that doesn't last too long either, and now it's just 2 folks across the road. Somehow, a fire arrow fails to make any fire around one of them who does not have the same problems against us, but we're able to get him with a dagger thrown right into his face the round after. With just a single booyag left now, it's just a matter of getting in her face and giving a good couple thwacks. Maybe the next goblins will think twice. For now though, these goblins were nice enough to give enough XP for level 3, granting our subclass Giant Barbarian befitting a man of our stature. Notably, at this level we get Giant's Rage, which increases our size category by 1 and doubles our rage bonus damage on throws. We also get an extra rage charge to go with it, and we learned Thaumaturgy for free, which is helpful when intimidating people outside of combat. Elsewhere in the village, some more goblins decide they want to tussle with our muscle after Thaumaturgy decides it doesn't want to put in the work quite just yet. And so, another fight begins. I guess they didn't want to think twice. Starting off, we show off our new Giant Rage and tower over their puny leader, who we then proceed to miss. Then we get shot a whole bunch by their archers, and crit hit by a warg, and very bravely run and hide on this roof where we definitely don't get blown up even more. But with the help of a speed potion and some high ground, we show their boss who's really in charge soon enough, as he gets begging for his life after only being hit twice. We decide to leave reason to the reasonable though, and kill him anyways. His horde runs away too, leaving us free to perform our greatest throw yet on this helpless gnome with the aid of a handy dandy windmill. From here we continue down the road and this time successfully intimidate a few goblins before getting a real bad headache right outside of the goblin camp. The Absolute gives us a vision of her 3 chosen, aka the people we need to conquer in order to rule the world. Conveniently enough, an artifact capable of resisting the Absolute shows up just now too, attached to a girl that we tell to bugger off, but we'll be getting that artifact, don't you worry. For now though, we head into the camp and talk to Grat the trader to buy the returning Pike. A handy dandy Pike that does tons of throwing damage and has the added benefit of popping right back into our hands after we toss it. Further in the goblin camp we meet Abdurak, who has the audacity to say that he's capable of inflicting harm upon our immaculate bod. We even take off our armor to make it easier on him, and while he certainly does try, we barely feel a thing no matter how hard he hits, resulting in him admitting we're superior and giving Napoleon the Viatar's Love permanent buff for a +2 to wisdom saves and attack rolls at low health. Also in the camp, we find an imprisoned Volothap Gedarm, a famed author who could make our name feared worldwide. Naturally, this doesn't go great for his guard. As we're in the middle of freeing him and making plans for him to stay at our camp, another guard interrupts, a mistake they won't have the chance to make again. Now that he's free, we're free to explore the rest of the camp, including intimidating an ogre into minding their own business as we snoop around Priestess Gut's quarters, leading to Napoleon finding a giant ladder into the Underdark. Well, it's a normal sized ladder to him. Soon after we arrive here, we find a Myconid colony, and after letting them know we're passing through and have no interest in conquering plants, they let us in, wherein we find Thula, who has some nice looking boots and has clearly been poisoned, so we do the right thing and finish her off. Unfortunately, the Myconids don't much care for that, so they aggro and turn on the Mexico filter. But they're not so mad that we can't just run away and come back after they've cooled off, but my goodness, what rude hosts. Either way, we get the boots of speed for our efforts, which basically just let us dash as a bonus action, and because we'll primarily be throwing our weapon from a range, this enables a whole kiting strategy if need be. And we have a quick chat with the Sovereign, who tells us he'd really like it if we killed some Dwergar absolute cultists down at the beach, but we'll think about that one. Just down the path in the colony is Dareth Bonecloak, who tells us she'll give us some very nice gloves if we can find her lost husband. The dwarven dunce is right nearby, but he's gotten himself surrounded by Bibberbang. All we need to do to save him is give him a Misty Scroll from his own backpack and he teleports out. What would these small folk do without us? Upon Napoleon giving the husband back, we get the gloves of Uninhibited Kushigo, which give our throwing and improvised weapon attacks 1d4 more damage, stacking on top of the ring we got earlier, so we'll really hit like a truck. Continuing on, we head down to the beach to talk to the aforementioned Dwergar, who as it turns out are looking for their sergeant's boots, the very boots that we have on right now. We lie and say we'll go hand in these killer kicks ourselves just so we can hitch a ride on their boat to where they're stationed, where it turns out their leader, True Soul Nier, has got himself trapped in a rockfall, and if he didn't have all their money on him, they'd prefer it that way. Now, we are a big fan of money, so when Elder Brithvar here offers us a bunch of it in exchange for helping them kill Nier, we're happy to join. First things first though, we gotta shove the wandering scrying eye into the depths below so the rest of the cult can't see what we're up to. Then we get enough XP from doing small tasks and wandering about here and there to hit level 4, granting our first feat, Tavern Brawler, which increases our strength by 1 to 18 and makes it so when we make an unarmed, improvised, or thrown attack, it adds our strength mod twice to damage and attack rolls. It's difficult to overstate how massively this increases Napoleon's already gigantic strength. Then we're back to blowing up the cave-in and out comes sauntering Nier, who's so relatable for instantly dunking one of the short folk slaves into the lava. Relatable as he is though, he's gotta go, so a fight kicks off. We instantly throw our pike at a nearby baddie, almost killing them, and then remember to rage afterwards. As it goes on to the Dwergar turns, this fight in general is pretty chaotic. Some folks do wail on Napoleon to no avail, naturally, but for the most part it's Brithvar's folks versus Nier's folks, and everyone is just wildly whacking whoever is closest. Right as our next turn comes around, we even get some reinforcements to make this fight even more in our favor. We try and shove the stubborn Dwergar, but despite our overwhelming size and strength, they stay still as a statue, so we use a rush attack to damage and move without triggering an opportunity attack. The fight rages on between the two sides. One tries to mimic Napoleon's stature, and the first baddie casualty gets caused by the lava, and before you know it, it's back to us where we're throwing and dashing around the corner. As the battle continues on, things fall into mostly the same groove, with folks falling on both sides bit by bit until it's just Nier and one goon versus a whole lot of us. It hardly needs saying, but Napoleon is set to conquer the world. This fight is hardly a Nier thing, and Nier bites the dust without even getting close to hurting us. His lone goon follows him into the grave a moment later. For our efforts, we get our gold, and the Dwergar decide to clear out, leaving all of Grymforge for us to explore. While exploring, Napoleon finds a group of animated armor just hanging out next to the lava, who unfortunately resist his powerful throws, which really makes him mad. And once he's mad, they don't really stand a chance, especially with the help of a strength elixir, making it even easier to suplex these incompetent constructs right into the lava. And wouldn't you know it, they were even guarding some mithril ore. If only there was a forge nearby in this here Grymforge. Especially since right next to here we find a rather nice looking mold too, not to mention another piece of mithril ore. By golly, wouldn't you know it, we find a forge right here where we pop in the various ingredients, hit the hammer, and go back up to the top where we can safely activate the lava valve. As we watch the lava pour out though, we can't help but wonder why it's called Grymforge. Like, yeah, here's the forge, but where's... Oh, well, I guess that answers that. He may be a giant, cruel construct, but even now Napoleon looks down on such a puny figure as we toss all of our junk at it from on high and crush it slowly but surely. At one point, a bunch of magma methods do spawn, but with Grym working together with us, it's easy peasy to clear him out and go back to our epic showdown. 1 eon later, we finally finish him off with a real weapon to make sure the crushing damage doesn't steal our experience. The leap down is more of a casual step because of our massive legs, and once we're at the bottom we get our reward, the Adamantine shield and Adamantine scale mail. The shield is something we'll be using later, so keep it in mind, but the armor we'll be using right now, as it's 16 AC medium armor that gives crit immunity and sends folks reeling when they hit us to make them even more likely to miss. Now that we're sufficiently geared up, we go talk to Minthara, one of the goblin leaders. Since she can no doubt take us to the Absolute's headquarters, we tell her exactly where she can find the druid grove that she's been searching for. But she needs a day to get ready, so we go back to camp where Volo is ready to do a very legit seeming operation to remove our tadpole. After a very measured first approach and a clearly well-practiced follow-up from the legendary author, he gouges our eye out with nothing to show for it. Before Napoleon gathers his wits enough to rage, the spurious surgeon gives him an invisibility-seeing eye prosthetic and bolts away to as far as his short stubby legs can carry him. Either way, the next day we've got the perfect opportunity to let off some steam as we blow the horn and start the goblin raid, letting our callous conqueror show off just how evil he truly is. Between the titanic tosses from us, the barrage of arrows from our goblin pals, the extremely deadly bites from these building-sized spiders, and the absolutely insane numbers advantage, poor Zevlor doesn't stand a chance. A little further in, as the massacre continues, we find Won't from earlier, who really shows off what he's been working on all this time. Good job, buddy. The civilians themselves are like shooting fish in a barrel, leaving just the druids as any real threat since Minthara decided to not back us up with them. Luckily, however, the druids love just running into their own moonbeam. The only really scary one here is Kaga. However, our ability to keep her at a range while she focuses on the infantry lets us take her out in just one more round. The frontline fodder continues to do their task and distract, while we're free to take out the rest of the druids in just 1 or 2 attacks each. As we're celebrating at camp later that night, Minthara puts the moves on us, but we're just not that interested. It's a height thing, you know, she's just way too short. She does try and kill us because of this, but it's nothing we can't intimidate her out of. Instead, she gives us a fancy harp which we can use to summon a guide through the Shadowcurse lands and 2 Moonrise Towers, the cult's headquarters. To get there, we'll need to go through the mountain pass. A good thing we've now got Scratch joining us in our adventures. That's not all, we also have the artifact from earlier just showing up in our pack. Further proof that dominating the Absolute is our ultimate destiny. The next day, we're in the mountain pass talking to Lady Esther, who tells us a Githkresh has occupied the nearby monastery. And she also sells us the Periapt of Wound Closure, a handy amulet that makes it so whenever we heal for the max amount possible, making us much tankier. Then we continue on to the Kresh and find them corralling cultists. It seems we might be able to get some more info about them if we manage to talk to someone in charge here. First, we need to get inside though, and as we're looking for an entrance, we stumble across a room full of drunk kobolds, aka the Sword Coast equivalent of a rage room. This fight is pretty straightforward. All we need to do is throw our weapon and then use our boots to dash away, forcing all of our foes to spend their whole turns dashing as well. Thanks Thanks to our boots, this is a pretty hard strategy to go wrong, and with most of the kobolds going down in one hit, it's more stress relief than anything else. Once they're all dealt with, they even give us the experience needed to reach level 5, giving us extra attack, basically doubling our damage, and fast movement to increase our speed by 3 meters. On top of that, we also get Boot of the Giants, which is basically a better shove that also deals the same damage as an unarmed attack, plus it's only fitting for our enemies to end up under our heel. Upstairs in the monastery, we find some Grimishka too, who suffer a frighteningly similar fate to the kobolds, although this time with a little bit more kicking to boot. Napoleon also finds a room that appears to be meant to hold weapons. I wonder what would happen were we to fill out these pedestals. Maybe with some ceremonial weapons that we find scattered throughout the temple. As we get on the hunt, we find a ghostly guardian protecting another weapon that goes down easy peasy. And on the roof, we find a couple of big birds, who of course instantly start calling for help when they see the might of Napoleon. But with the help of a Colossus elixir, both our damage and our stature are more massive than ever before. Just look at that log. To further test our strength, we bully the hatchling that was left behind, only to loot their nest for yet another weapon. We do also find a giant cannon looking thing up here though, so we decide to hold off on the weapons for now in case things blow up. Instead, we find the front entrance to the creche under this place, fail to intimidate the guards, and get dragged into another fight. Unfortunately, they get to go first, leading to them landing a few solid hits, which only enrages us, followed by a throw, and then we toss a speed potion and with the extra action heal up. One of the baddies wastes their turn jumping at us, another fails with a spell, and the third and fourth kinda just run around in circles in sheer terror. So we kick these surly swordsmen off of us in order to get a clean angle on the spellcaster, taking them out in a few throws, then wedge ourselves back in the corner where it's hard for them to get line of sight. Napoleon does dodge a couple more blows from the melee menace, but the Ardent deals guaranteed damage no matter what. Since the old giant boot doesn't work wonders this time, we only manage to land one hit on the Ardent, using our last action to refresh our speed pot as the enemies wail on us some more. With a solid kick next round, a regular throw of our Pike, and a bombastic boom from a smoke powder bomb, we take out the Ardent with an action to spare to heal up. Now that there's only 2 of them left and they both primarily do physical damage, we're not worried at all. In fact, it only takes a couple more rounds to finish them both off. Kicking open the front door, we're ready to throw down and get our revenge for being treated this way, but I guess those guys weren't well liked since no one seems to mind that we're here. Those guards alone were pretty tough though, so we figure we should look for more power before decimating this whole place. Which leads to us finding ourselves back in the swamp where we see an old lady being accused of stealing these 2 fellows' sister. This lady is clearly more than she appears, however, as she wipes them out with just a wave of her hand. If we can get power like that, we'll be set. But rather than managing to track her down, Napoleon bumps into a bunch of mud mephits and wood woads. Sylvanas only knows how they've managed to last so long here, since they are certainly not tough enough to be able to afford picking fights with everyone who wanders by. They were guarding a fancy looking chest with the sparkle hands in it, which we won't be using for a while still, but once again keep these in mind. And wouldn't you know it, just down the path we run into Ethel, who's accosting what must be the kidnapped sister. She even has the audacity to call us a barbarian with old brawn and no brains. Why, we'll show her. It seems she's being rather careful with the young lady as she sends her away from us before turning into a horrible hag. And the fight once again begins. This time with reinforcements coming in the form of gnome-like redcaps. The sight of those little buggers enrages Napoleon as he gets prioritizing their blood sages so they can't use any of their wicked magic. They've still got a bit to reach us, so they spend their turns dashing. Meanwhile, Ethel very smartly runs away. Unfortunately, we can't get an angle on the remaining blood sage, so we just hit whoever's closest and then use our speed to skedaddle backwards, once again forcing our foes to dash. The angle is just a little too awkward for our massive Pike to get the sage, so we resort to using a couple daggers that we've been stockpiling for just the occasion. Since we no longer need to worry about hold person, the remaining 2 regular redcaps get shown just how true the old saying, height makes right, really is. Following that, we chase Ethel into her basement reinforcement where she doubles on the intelligence insults, but I'll have you know our brain is just as large as the rest of us. Then she once again disappears further into her abode. But no matter how many loathsome lackeys the hideous hag puts in our way, they are no match for Napoleon. We even get beating people to death with other people just to show how little chance they stand. A couple good boots and even better throws and they too are dealt with. The lady of the house tries to confuse us with poison fogs and explosive traps, but one solid featherfall fueled leap and we're at the bottom. Who's got the little brain now? Using an invis potion, we managed to free the young lady Mayrina to use as leverage, and our special Voloi manages to spot Ethel lurking right next to us. So we use a darkness arrow to put ourselves into a fight with her while giving us cover. The examine function easily reveals the real one as she summons illusion, since only the real one has Fey life, so we just hit her and then make sure to end our turn in a darkness cloud, causing every single version of Ethel to just stand there and stare at us since they can't target us. Because we do so much damage and get a lucky crit hit, it only takes a couple more throws to reduce her under 30 HP, whereupon she promptly surrenders at the start of her turn, begging desperately. Sure enough, she offers us the power we want in exchange for leaving with her life and Mayrina. And we don't really care about the girl, so Napoleon gladly accepts, to which Ethel gives us a piece of her scalp. Yum yum, get in my tum. Upon eating it, our base strength goes up to 19, which isn't really relevant right now, but it will be later. We're still not feeling as strong as we'd like even with that increase, so we get training by slaughtering everything we see, starting with a fishman cult, then some newborn gnolls, followed by their presumed parents who were attacking some helpless folks. Of course we get the helpless folks while we're here too, stealing whatever they were guarding. Then Napoleon convinces some cultists to call a bunch of owl bears. Don't worry, he killed them before they got the cub, he's not a monster or anything. The Dwergar on the beach from way back when don't escape our wrath either. When we tell the Myconids, they're so stoked that they throw a dance party and give bliss spores, granting a d6 bonus to pretty much all of our rolls till our next rest. At which point we also decide to put the ceremonial weapons on their appropriate pedestals, which doesn't blow anything up and actually gives Morning Lord's Radiance for 1d4 extra radiant damage on everything, also till our next rest. Finally, we feel more or less ready to get our revenge on the Kresh for their earlier welcome. As we go to track down the leader, we see this lady raise a force field behind him. To prepare, we down a psychic resistance elixir, then get ready to take that key by force. Turn 1, we just down a speed potion and make as many throws as we can on her, bringing her down super low. Her ardent ally does barely anything to us. She herself casts blur to try and escape our wrath, but her wolves absolutely lay into us while reinforcements start crowding in. To make things worse, we start raging and crit miss our first throw, followed by the second, barely failing to kill, leaving us to heal up with the last action. Thankfully, she does the classic dash up to us and then misty step away tactic that Gith are famous for. The archer that joined only lands one hit, and the wolves aren't very scary now that we're raging, allowing us to finish off the boss lady before she remembers she has a terrifying spell list, then get to work on the rest of the folks in here, and of course refresh our speed potion when needed. Blow after blow comes raining down on our champion, but his stalwart strength is unmatched, especially thanks to a psychic resistance elixir, meaning this is actually a pretty straightforward fight to clean up. A couple throws for each enemy, and the odd healing potion here and there has us safe and sound. If only the Gith could say the same. We're not satisfied with just these Gith though, we're gonna slaughter all of them, using everything at our disposal too, even Wall of Fire scrolls and bombs to deal massive AoE damage, and you can't forget kick after kick too. Once even the folks in their youngling school and hatchery have been dealt with, the nefarious Napoleon reaches level 6, giving us an additional rage charge per long rest and elemental cleaver. This ability can be used for free only while raging, grants an extra 1d6 damage of our choosing and the thrown property to whatever weapon we're holding, while also making it return to our hands after we throw it. I won't lie, I do forget to use it like a million times this run, so bear with me. Then we talk to their leader Wargaz, who is a fan of our work and clearly doesn't know what's happened in the rest of the Kresh. Before we can do too much yapping, the God Queen Vlaakith shows up, asking us to kill whoever is inside of our mysterious artifact that we picked up earlier. Unfortunately, we're not strong enough to deny a god quite just yet, so we oblige, but we'll remember this. us. Inside, we find the personification of the voice in our head, who keeps telling us to do stuff that we don't want to. That'll teach them to think that they know better. But it was just an illusion, and we can't actually kill them, which just makes us want to do it even more. But for now, they tell us the Gith on the outside are gonna try and kill us and give us a bless that lasts until we next rest. Stepping back into the real world, we down a speed potion with Scratch at our side and one of the Gith greatswords in hand for the initiative boost and raw damage that it gives. The final fight kicks off and Scratch triggers an attack of opportunity, so while Wargaz can't parry us, we get raging in response, instantly using our elemental cleaver to gain extra lightning damage. Then we throw, each hit dealing massive damage, since at the time elemental cleaver was a damage rider source, basically meaning it triggers Tavern Brawler and the like an extra time. This did get nerfed immediately after this fight though, so we'll be doing less damage next time we get into showdown. Either way, the big man barely lives and all his goons start laying into us one by one, but none of them are capable of taking us down. When it's back to Napoleon, we get the boot of a lifetime, sending our once admirer into oblivion. Since we got such a massive damage boost, we're capable of completely one-shotting the regular Gith too. As you can imagine, with such humongous power befitting our frame, it only takes another couple rounds to completely wipe out our opponents. After that, we're free to walk out the front door, use an invis potion to sneak past some undead in our way that we really don't care to deal with, and head towards the Shadow-Cursed Lands, where we just can't wait to tower over Moonrise Towers. Thanks very much for watching the start of another adventure, folks. This was a fun one, especially once we got the Boot of the Giants ability. Just being a murder hobo and booting everyone is quite the grand time, I must admit. And as always, a special thanks to our Storyteller tier members, Okan, Mark Rainbow, Rat King, Lumina, Beltfed Joe, Chance Hine, El Guardia, Ramon Standalone, Witch Amy, and Jessie Kate.